looks like the tornado is thinning out a little bit for right now, but there's horses that have ended up getting out of their pens here. There's debris across the road, and the tornado has appeared to be lifting up. It looks like it's a large funnel at the present time.
Okay, the National Weather Service has issued a severe thunderstorm warning for Freeborn County in southern Minnesota, that until 7:45 p.m. as we continue to take a closer look at this cell as it works its way right along the Iowa-Minnesota border. Adam, are you still with us, sir?
Yes, I am. I'm still in Glenville right now. There's trains across the track. There's power lines down, so we're going to have to kind of abandon this for right now. I'm going to see if I can find another way around, but I can still see the funnel rapidly rotating, and I am going to assume that it is on the ground and it is continuing to move across the area.
Confirmed tornado touchdown in the town of Glenville, and joining us now live on the phone is Adam Frederick, our weekend meteorologist. Adam, you saw this tornado touch down. Now what's going on in the Glenville area?
Ryan, right now the emergency crews are making it into Glenville. We were in Glenville before the emergency crews were able to make it here. And what we're seeing as we're driving around Glenville, trying to make our way through the town, is we're seeing buildings and houses with their roofs ripped off. We're seeing like one of the grain silos from the co-op. We have big trees that are down across the area right now, power lines, and it's just an utter mess throughout the city of Glenville. Not total destruction. It could have been a lot worse, but there is still plenty of destruction to say the least.
Now this tornado, this funnel came down just west of Glenville, it's my understanding?
Right. The funnel did end up coming down just to the west of Glenville. As it touched down, it ended up moving through the city itself. Lots of destruction right now, as I continue to see. In fact, some buildings are completely destroyed in Glenville. Lots of trees that are completely ripped apart. And it's, like I said, it's just a sight that you just never, never want to see.
A tornado. Sirens are going off. May 1st, 7:05 p.m. This is east of our place. There's the record. Wow, this is unreal. Can you think of anybody else who should warn? Wow.
had a very good response. It's a credit to Freeborn County's Fire Association and the way that the fire departments function in this town, this county, the mutual aid agreements and that. We have a large number of resources right now. The utility companies are functioning very well, cutting off broken gas lines, broken gas meters, and working to restore power and utilities. At this point, our water and sewer is functioning, so in that aspect we're in pretty good shape.
How much help have you received?
We've received a lot. There's a lot of resources here. At this point, been quite busy. We haven't had time to exactly figure out who's all here. Like I just said, Austin Public Utilities truck just drove by. So that's kind of, that's a surprise. I didn't expect, in our community like that to be in here that quick.
Describe you coming into town, going to check out your business, and what what you were seeing and what you were thinking as you came in and saw all that.
I carry communications with me, I know fire department also, and coming in, I knew it wasn't going to be good. When I come on down Main Street, significant amount of damage. I looked towards our business, which I seen leveled. There was no sense stop. Come down here.
I was actually on my computer checking my email. It was raining, I heard it raining outside, and all of a sudden the lights went out. So I got up to look to see what was happening. I've got a big picture window on the east side of my house. I looked out and trees were swirling all over, stuff was flying. I thought, head for the basement. Turned around, made it about halfway across the room, got picked up and thrown across the room into the refrigerator. I tried to make it to the basement stairs, stuff was flying around, so I thought, good place here. I hid between the refrigerator and the wall and just stood there. It lasted, I don't know, it seemed to me about 30, 40 seconds, but they told me it was like 3 minutes.
Sirens?
No sirens, nothing. It was no warning. It just happened.
Did you know we were in a tornado watch?
I knew there was a tornado watch going on, and it was raining, and I heard hail outside. I just let the dog out because she wanted to go out, and I thought I better go get her. And that's when the lights went out, so I didn't even have a chance to think about it.
How big a hail did you get?
Well, where are you, baby?
I'd say it was marble size what I saw,
Bailey,
but
come here.
it could have been bigger. You know, I didn't have a chance to really look.
Home by yourself? Or
I was
wife?
home by myself. Dog and the cat were here. The cat's gone. He's outside somewhere. The dog we thought got killed. When I came out, there was a pile of debris over where she had been, and her leash was underneath there. But she's at our family restaurant. She was found wandering around town, so she's over there now. So.
What kind of damage did your house have?
The inside is fairly good. The upstairs suffered some damage. It sucked out some windows. The roof needs probably to be replaced. The whole front of it is smashed in on the front. A couple of windows downstairs. There's a lot of water damage. I'm not sure. It's going to take a while to get it fixed.
And your backyard needs some remodeling too.
Yeah, well, you know, Wes relocated his shop over there into my backyard, it looks like, so.
Is he coming back to get it then?
I hope so. Hope somebody is.
Or Wes, was he? Where was he?
He wasn't here. The first thing I thought when I came out, I saw Larry Shantz. His Blazer was sitting there, so I thought Larry was inside when it happened. So I ran over and I couldn't find him, and we smelled gas, so we got out of here.
How was the night? Getting through the night, what'd you do?
I went over to the restaurant and waited there. They hauled me to the high school and triaged me because I have some heavy bruising on my shoulder and my back from hitting the refrigerator.
So how big a man are you? If I may ask.
5'7", 240.
Describe me that feeling. It must have been like the finger of God messing with
It was
you.
like I was running on my tiptoes without having any weight. So, I mean, my feet were still on the ground, but I was moving forward.
And that was right after you seen the trees moving and...
I looked out the window, and there's some pine trees behind me. Well, what's left of them. They were leaned over in the wind, just at least a 45-degree angle. They snapped back up, went the other way, and that's when I thought, you know, I'm not going to be here. I want to be in the basement. I don't want to be anywhere near, and I never made it to the basement.
What about the grain bin? Did you hear that go? Or
I heard two big whomps, and I assume that's what the grain bin was. When I walked outside, the piles were higher. I think the rain has probably washed it down somewhat, but I just couldn't believe it. It was total mass destruction. Everywhere that I could see from my house, there's nothing but destruction.
Do you feel lucky in a way?
I'm very lucky. It's, you know, I don't want to sound spiritual, but, you know, nobody got hurt bad in this town, which is great. I think, you know, even though God's destruction was here, he was looking out for everybody, so. A lot of damage. It's going to take us a lot of work to clean it up, but everybody's working together so far, so.
it's difficult to see things at night, but this is the first thing you see all over the place. Lots of downed trees. We want to take you right up to video we shot on the way in from Chopper 5. These are the very first pictures coming back home of what you see in town. This is Main Street in Glenville. You can see at least one damaged building, actually a destroyed building at one end of town. A little bit further down the block, there were some more buildings that were damaged as well. As you can see, it's dark down here, but the damage is clear. This storm came through here with a lot of force. The good news is we're hearing from law enforcement on the ground that they believe only minor injuries at this point, but they're still checking here in town and out in the country. We are hearing from Freeborn County authorities that it is out in the countryside where there may be more substantial damage to farms. But again, obviously it is dark. It makes trying to assess the damage very difficult, and it also makes looking for people difficult as well because phone lines are down, there's some cell phone problems down here, and obviously the power's out. So to recap, Glenville, Minnesota has been hit by a storm quite hard. You saw the pictures, you see the tree behind me, and again, we'll be working throughout the night to try to get a better grasp of how much damage is done here. We'll have a live report, the latest for you tomorrow morning.
Rotation, this is incredible. You are looking at a tornado on the ground in southern Minnesota earlier tonight, destroying anything it came in contact with.
Plus, investigators pull a body from the Shell Rock River in northern Cerro Gordo County. We'll have more on the body found in North Iowa in just a few minutes, but first the latest on tonight's May Day twister.
The twister dropped out of the clouds just across the Iowa border in the Glenville area. It proceeded to the northeast and lifted back into the clouds on the southwest side of Austin.
KIMT News Channel 3's Adam Frederick chased the storm as it developed into the Mayday twister, and Adam joins us live now from the Storm Team 3 Forecast Center. Adam, this really was a powerful storm.
It certainly was, Amy and Pete. It was an absolutely incredible storm, and it's unfortunately something that we never want to see happen in this area. Let's take a look at some video from earlier on tonight. In fact, this is what it originally started off as. We followed this storm from parts of northern Iowa as it started off as just a little pretty fluffy cloud, before it ended up turning up into this monster. And this is the wall cloud with rapid rotation before it ended up producing the twister that ended up producing the damage. And you can see there as that van passes by, just behind those trees, you're going to start to see some of the damage and debris, some of the dust being kicked up by that storm, as that is a massive tornado that's on the ground at that time. And this is as it's going through the city of Glenville itself. Of course, at this time, we did not realize what it was going through as we were still to the west of the city of Glenville over by the XL plant. And it's unfortunate that ended up landing right in the middle of downtown Glenville. And you can see with that tornado, the tornado was large. The damage produced probably was in the F3 category range, although that's going to be yet to be determined once the National Weather Service gets out and surveys it. But that storm stayed on the ground for a long time. With most tornadoes, it's about for 5 minutes. And with that storm, at times it was reaching a quarter of a mile, sometimes even up to a half a mile, or maybe larger. And you can see Glenville there in the beginning part of the city, or the western part of the city, and the storm continued to move on through. And this is one storm that I'm sure I won't forget anytime soon, and unfortunately the people of Glenville won't forget anytime soon either. Reporting live in the newsroom, I'm meteorologist Adam Frederick. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Adam. Some incredible pictures there.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, Glenville is working to dig out from the damage the Mayday twister left behind.
Now, the twister hit in downtown Glenville, destroying a good part of the downtown. Electricity has been shut off to downtown Glenville. It will be out throughout the night. 2 people are still unaccounted for. 1 has suffered injuries. Now, KIMT News Channel 3 Stephanie Engelson went to Glenville and talked with a man who will never forget this Mayday twister.
John Stewart was hit with the surprise of his life when the Mayday twister blew through his hometown of Glenville.
I don't know. It happened so fast. I turned to run, and I was running through the doorway, and it felt just like I got picked up and thrown.
Stewart was lucky. His home only had minor damages on it, but the northwest portion of Glenville's Main Street was hit hard. Stewart said he waited for the storm to end and then went outside to look around.
I walked outside, and the building across the alley from me was pretty much all in my backyard and on top of my house.
Stewart also says he smelled gas, so he left the area. In the meantime, he says he'll wait until he is let back to see what kind of damage has been done to his house. In Glenville, Stephanie Engelson, KIMT News Channel 3.
Now, emergency crews are asking the public to stay away from the wreckage until the gas leaks are under control. The storms have moved out of the viewing area now, but they definitely left their mark.
And the possibility for more severe weather in the area still exists. Chief Meteorologist Ryan Burchett joins us from the Storm Team 3 Forecast Center. Ryan, This is a brutal reminder of what spring is like in the Midwest, isn't it?
A scene we've seen all too often. And looking back at Storm Team 3 Doppler, I'll show you what we were seeing in the Storm Team 3 Forecast Center. Starting off at about 6:40 tonight, I was on the air live with Adam Frederick, who was following this storm, and he began to see rotation as it moved just west of Glenville. Then, as it hit the Glenville area, live on the air, Adam saw that tornado touch down. We relayed that information on to you just before 7 o'clock. It took another about 5 minutes before National Weather Service issued that tornado warning, but then that storm ripped through Glenville and slid onto the north and east. It was on the ground till just southwest of Austin when it did begin to skip a little bit. We expect, judging by damage reports, that it did touch down briefly on the northwest side of Austin at about 7:25 and then moved on to the north and east. We had tornado warnings into Olmsted County, but that has since passed. We do still have storms to worry about, though. Severe thunderstorm watch in effect until 3 a.m. for almost the entire KIMT viewing area. And the storms that we have now still in that same line that we've seen progressing eastward throughout the night. Most of the activity to our south and west as we look closer with Storm Team 3 Doppler. But we will keep an eye on that throughout the overnight and keep you updated should anything develop into more severe weather. In the meantime, I'll have more in your Storm Team 3 forecast, but back to you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ryan.
Now, KIMT News Channel 3 does have a crew in Glenville. We are hoping to go to them live in just a few minutes, but first, back to our other top story.
That's right.
Now, as we mentioned earlier in the newscast, our spring weather brought a Mayday twister that hit hardest in downtown Glenville, just over the Iowa border. KIMT News Channel 3's Jamie Copley is in downtown Glenville right now and joins us live. Jamie, what can you tell us about the situation there?
Well, first of all, Pete, it's just so bizarre to be here after I was here earlier tonight with Adam Frederick, seeing that tornado touchdown, seeing the damage that is left behind in the town of Glenville. Basically, right now, everyone is at the Glenville High School, and that's where we are at right now. It's kind of a makeshift shelter now for area residents. I'm joined now by Wayne Olson with the Glenville Fire Department. And tell us a little bit, what are you dealing with tonight?
Well, the main thing is we're getting a lot of gas pipes shut down that were broken. Most of the damage has been done on Main Street and north of Main Street, and a lot of power lines down. The Glenville Evans High School is the command center. All the people are out of their homes down there now. We've had no serious injuries as we know up to this point.
Okay. Are there still people missing? Do we know if there's a couple
I have not heard any more. We heard earlier there was one person not accounted for, but I haven't heard anything since.
Okay. What are you telling residents to do tonight?
Until we hear from the Chief Knutson that they can go back down that area, they must stay here.
Okay. Thank you so much, and good luck with the cleanup. And for now, right now, we've talked to Alliant Energy. John Ruff with Alliant Energy says that they have shut off power to the entire town. Don't expect to have that power on again until noon tomorrow. That's when Alliant Energy spokespeople will go through the town and assess the damage that they have and see what kind of damage has happened here in Glenville. So we'll have the latest for you then again tonight. Reporting live in Glenville, I'm Jamie Copley. Back to you guys in the studio.
Jamie, quickly, in your own words, you witnessed this tornado tonight. What is it like seeing what it left behind?
I'm sorry, what was that, Pete?
What is it like seeing what this tornado left behind after seeing it actually in action earlier this evening?
It's so bizarre because it's standing there, you're looking at the tornado, it is so powerful, and you can't believe that what it is actually doing is leaving behind a path of destruction. And coming up here and actually seeing the faces of the people that it affected, it's just amazing that Mother Nature can have that kind of impact on lives. So it's something you never want to see happen, but it happened here in Glenville.
Okay, thank you very much. Jamie Copley at the Glenville Evans High School.
soldiers into the city here over the last 24 hours or so, a little less than 24 hours.
This is what people in Glenville saw early last night as a tornado roared toward them. It touched down a short time later. Thanks for joining us this midday. The tornado and the damage it did is a graphic reminder that severe weather season is here.
And people in Glenville learned that firsthand last night when a tornado touched down, knocking out power and doing some major damage. That's where Heidi Bodine has been since early this morning, and she has the latest on the cleanup. Good morning, Heidi.
Good morning, John. You are looking at one of two grain elevators heavily damaged by the tornado. I am actually on the other side of a toppled silo, and I'm standing in a pile of beans. We even saw beans and corn blocks away, and it's just the beginning of the damage.
What can you say?
What can you say when a business you started 14 years ago crumbles in just seconds?
It's unbelievable. We live about 2 blocks over, and we had a strong wind there, but nothing compared to what this must have been.
The tornado ripped the metal roof off of this car wash and threw it across the street next to this garage, also in the twister's path. Kevin Braun was storing his car in here at his parents' for safekeeping.
I bought it new back in '85, and I've only got 11,000 miles on it. So I've kind of been saving it like new.
Folks in Glenville are thankful this pile of rubble was a vacant building. While many homes here are damaged, the majority of the harm happened to Main Street businesses, including the mayor's.
We've been here for a lot of years, and we're still here, and we'll be back.
And of course, the blessing in all of this today is that nobody was hurt. I can tell you the biggest challenge today is the rain. It just started raining again, and it has been a downpour since 3 a.m. this morning. So they were waiting for that rain to let up, and then they started assessing the damage once they got to daylight. But most people we've been talking to today said that they didn't have much of a warning. No sirens went off last night. They did have a storm, but actually before this hit, there was somewhat of a calm, and they thought the skies were clearing. They were wrong.
Okay, Heidi, thank you very much.
This is some of the damage in the southern Minnesota town of Glenville less than 24 hours after the Mayday twister swept through the town. Repair and emergency crews have been working since late last night to restore power and provide aid to the citizens of Glenville. Well, KIMT News Channel 3 meteorologist and storm chaser Adam Frederick joins us live now from one of the heaviest hit parts of Glenville. Adam, can you tell us what the latest progress is in helping the victims of this Mayday twister?
Well, Pete, the victims are certainly getting a lot of aid, and they're certainly starting to start the cleanup as well after the twister ended up moving through. Joining me right now is Imogene Opdahl, disaster coordinator for Freeborn County of the American Red Cross. And you did a damage survey today. The National Weather Service estimated the storm was an F2. What did you see for damage?
Well, we went out and did damage assessment this morning, and we found 6 homes that were totally destroyed, 13 that had major damage, 84 that had minor damage, and we had 2 apartments that were totally destroyed and 3 that had minor damage.
Now, obviously, these people are going to be needing a lot of help, and that's what the Red Cross does, is help people that are in need. So how can other people help the people that have gone through the Glenville tornado?
The best thing they can do is send a monetary donation to the Red Cross. If they want to earmark it for the Glenville tornado, that's fine. And just send it to the Freeborn County Red Cross in Albert Lee at 146 West William.
Okay, thank you very much. And so the people here have been getting a lot of help from neighbors and other members of the community, as well as the Salvation Army. So the people here in Glenville certainly are in good hands, which is definitely some good news. Reporting live in Glenville, Minnesota, I'm meteorologist Adam Frederick. Pete, back to you.
Okay, Adam, we'll see you later in the newscast. Now, the tornado tore through the heart of Glenville, leaving behind devastation where downtown merchants once did business. Some of the worst damage happened right here. This pile of rubble was once an electronics shop. Other businesses along Main Street suffered structural damage. Employees of the office bar says they barely made it to the basement before the powerful twister hit.
Stuff, like certain things blown over, certain things not. And there was bottles that are on the bar that hadn't been touched, but then there's bar stools and chairs and tables blown all over.
There hasn't been an official damage assessment yet, but Mickelson believes there's major structural and roof damage to the building. Now, as business owners start the cleanup process, many other counties have sent cleanup crews to help out. Albert Lee Park crews were out in full force today, helping to get the streets cleared in Glenville. Park Superintendent Joe Grossman says there's a significant amount of damage to this small community. But even professionals need to be careful when it comes to the severe storm damage cleanup.
I guess our biggest hazard would be overhead hazards from limbs that are could potentially fall out of trees, or debris, building debris that are up in trees. Electrical hazards are probably our #1 concern.
Grossman adds the team cleanup effort also includes Alliant Utilities and Freeborn County.
You see the destruction on the TV, but you can't believe it until you see it yourself.
Today, the people in Glenville are all seeing it for themselves firsthand. They have destroyed buildings to deal with the damaged homes, and they are telling their stories of how they survived that tornado.
I was sitting on the 3rd step of my basement, and I heard the window shatter and stuck me right up to the boys' bedroom floor.
The tornado these people experienced was an F2, and on the Fujita scale of measuring these storms, that's a tornado packing winds of up to 175 miles an hour.
The National Weather Service tells us the tornado was on the ground for 21 miles last night. From Chopper 5 and from the ground, we have all sorts of pictures. You can see the kind of damage. That's a grain elevator there, totally trampled. Some buildings were turned into piles of lumber and brick. These pictures are all going on around the town of Glenville. People today realizing just how bad the tornado was and how bad the damage is. News reporter Bob McNaney has been there all day covering this. He's live in Glenville. Bob.
Okay, over my shoulder, the debris behind me, that was a car wash here on Glenville's Main Street. This is a scene that you're seeing all over town. Utility crews doing their best to get phone and electric back online. Over there by the tracks, you see the top of a grain elevator blown a couple of blocks over there. Well, there was a garage, now just debris. Earlier today, I talked to one woman who saw the storm coming and ran for her basement. She made it to the basement, but the tornado wouldn't let her stay there.
I was laying right here on the floor. And then I heard it sounded like a big explosion went off, like a big bomb.
That bomb, in reality, was that tornado which slammed into Glenville, Minnesota. The wind sucked Darlene Hegestad from the bottom basement step in her home to the first floor. She says she couldn't even breathe when it was happening. The force was that great.
I was okay. My family is fine. We have a lot of friends, a lot of family love and support. That's all that matters to me.
Chopper 5 gives a good look at the destruction left behind. Those are beans and corn on the ground next to that grain elevator, which was ripped open.
A mess, a total mess. This was a sweet little town, and it's a chaotic mess right now. It's devastation.
People who saw the tornado approaching knew the tiny town would be no match for the violent winds. Many hung on for dear life, knowing every bit of flying debris could kill. Now that the storm has passed and the cleanup continues, people here are thankful, even a bit surprised that no one was killed.
I thank God. I thank God for that.
Again, you see a little bit more of the debris behind me, people going through their homes, taking away what they can. As far as the sirens, that's been a topic of discussion down here today. I talked to the Freeborn County Sheriff about that today. He said the sirens did go off in the county, but they did not go off here in the city, according to the Freeborn County Sheriff. They're not quite sure why. One explanation is that the mayor and the fire chief saw the storm coming, tried to call down to City Hall on their cell phones, but couldn't get through. There's also some discussion about the power going out right about the time that they wanted to sound the horn. The bottom line is the sirens did not go off in this town, according to the sheriff, but all these people in this town who are on the west side of the town saw the storm coming and did what they should do. And again, the Weather Service pointed out at a town meeting today, even if you don't see, if you don't hear the siren, if you see the skies look nasty like they did last night, take cover.
Okay, Bob McNaney live tonight in Glenville. Bob, thank you.
You are looking live at the community of Glenville a day after the May Day Twister touched down in the southern Minnesota community. KIMT News Channel 3 will bring you comprehensive team coverage of what the May Day Twister left behind in Glenville.
In tonight's newscast, you'll find out how neighboring communities are pitching in to help. Also hear from the husband of a woman sucked out of her basement by the Twister. Plus, a business owner talks about rebuilding. And meteorologist Adam Frederick brings us a live report from Glenville on what parts of the city look like now. But first, a Minnesota state senator makes a stop in Glenville to see what kind of damage the May Day Twister did in her district.
KIMT News Channel 3's Stephanie Engelson tells us what announcement was made in Glenville today.
The May Day Twister brought heavy damage into the town of Glenville. Now, as residents clean up their town and the reality of the situation sets in, many of them have questions. City officials held a town meeting to address concerns residents have. During that meeting, Minnesota State Senator Grace Schwab dropped in to show her support for the people of Glenville. Schwab also announced that upon hearing about the heavy damage in the town, the Minnesota Senate decided to step in and help.
On the floor of the Senate today, we voted totally in favor of supporting you with additional state dollars after FEMA from private insurance companies take over.
The Senate's promise is part of a $213 million bonding bill meant to aid with urgent construction and repairs. The amount of money Glenville will receive depends on the damage tally, but Schwab says she will work to make sure Glenville is put back together.
We'll try our predictions to make sure we get all the money we need to make the community back to what it was before last night.
In the meantime, the people of Glenville will continue to dig themselves out of the rubble and begin to put the order back into their lives. In Glenville, Stephanie Engelson, KIMT News, Channel 3.
Minnesota Lieutenant Governor May Shunk also visited Glenville with Schwab. The two briefly toured the damage and then headed back to St. Paul. Now, KIMT News Channel 3 meteorologist Adam Frederick followed the May Day Twister as it skipped across Freeborn County. He joins us now live from Glenville. And Adam, I imagine that it's an eerie sight. First seeing the tornado, then seeing what it left behind.
It certainly was, Pete, but you know, sights and sounds that we ended up seeing were nothing compared to what it was like to live through it. Joining me right now is Wayne Olson, a resident here and a member of the Volunteer Fire Department. And Wayne, you told me an interesting story before. What could you tell us to our viewers, please?
Yeah, I was down getting my wife a pizza. I had my pickup parked in between those two vehicles over there that are destroyed. And it didn't get dark, and all of a sudden the wind changed. So I grabbed the pizza for my wife and I took off, made a left turn, and I got caught about 50 feet and I was in the tornado, and I had about 300 yards to go to make a right turn, and when I made that right turn, the wind picked up the back of my pickup and made me a nice, real nice right turn, and I got home, and instead of, I guess instead of pizza, it was lasagna, but we got home. But the pickup, the windshield's gone, but everything else is fine.
Well, I'm certainly glad to hear that your story ended up to be pretty happy. Next time, get delivery.
Thank you.
This is just one of the many stories that has happened here in Glenville, Minnesota, and of course we'll be continuing to monitor what's going on here and the recovery efforts as some light rain is now starting to fall. Reporting live in Glenville, Minnesota, I'm meteorologist Adam Frederick. Back to you.
Unbelievable story. Thank you, Adam.
Well, the twister devastated parts of downtown Glenville, leaving many merchants wondering when their doors will open again for business. Some of the worst damage happened here. This pile of rubble was once an electronics shop. Other businesses along Main Street suffered structural damage. Employees of the Office Bar say they barely made it to the basement before the powerful twister hit.
You thought you were going to be done. You could see we were kind of like down by the heater, and the flames from the heater were just being sucked upwards, and then we thought it was over and it was all silent. I mean, but there was nothing, and it had to have been just right on top of us. Right.
Anderson says the entire storm took about 2 minutes, but adds in those 2 minutes there was a lot of roof and structural damage to the building. Well, everyone in Glenville was touched in some way by this devastating twister. Many families worked to pick up the pieces today after last night's tornado came a little too close for comfort. KIMT News Channel 3's Jamie Copley spoke with one man who's just thankful today his family is safe and sound.
I had a phone call around 8:30 that my wife was sucked out of the basement floor and upstairs to the main floor. She was okay. She got bruised up a little bit, but our house was pretty much a mess.
Gary Hegestead still can't believe what happened. The place he once called home is nearly unlivable after the tornado plowed through his house, leaving nothing but damage behind.
Yeah, well, I don't know how you can describe it. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of cleanup.
The damage? Severe. All of the windows were blown completely out of the house. Very few shingles remain on the roof, and the structure was moved nearly 3 inches off its foundation. Gary says seeing his home and his land torn up like this is a real shock, but what's helping him get through this experience is knowing that his friends are there for him.
I guess I'm fortunate. It didn't happen to me, so I don't know how they're feeling, but I know if it was my situation, I would want people to help me out also, so that's kind of why I'm here. And I think that's about probably the only
But the cleanup is going quickly, and now they must wait for the insurance company to come and assess the total damage. Gary says it's mainly just a huge inconvenience, but there are blessings to this situation.
Yeah, you realize where your friends are and who they are. Like I say, yeah, we'll all pull together. We'll be here.
In Glenville, Jamie Copley, KIMT News Channel 3.
Both men say they've lived through previous tornadoes, but this is by far the biggest and the worst one they've ever experienced.
Now, many counties have offered their assistance to the small community devastated by this tornado. Albert Lee Park crews were out in full force today, helping to get the streets cleared in Glenville. Park Superintendent Joe Grossman says there's a significant amount of damage to the small community. Many can't believe what devastation the twister left behind.
It's pretty substantial, for a small town like this. Fortunately, it didn't come through, Albert Lee. Or otherwise, obviously, we wouldn't be here. We'd be asking for help ourselves. So.
Grossman adds his work crew takes extra precautions to make sure they stay safe when cleaning up the debris. Now, while these work crews are offering their help, other agencies are pitching in to keep the workers on their feet. The Salvation Army is a familiar sight at many disaster areas. Besides helping residents rebuild their lives, the Salvation Army volunteers help emergency crews.
We're basically going around making sure that the crews that are helping clean up the town have something to eat, the National Guardsmen that can't leave their posts, that way they can have a hot meal.
Middleton says emergency services the Salvation Army provide are funded by donations throughout the year.
Well, the damage outside Glenville is also extensive. We took the Freeborn County Sheriff up in Chopper 5 to give him his first good look at the tornado's path over some farms. When he came down, he told us he thinks his county came out pretty well, all things considered.
It's the opportunity to really get a good look at things, and it really showed us the path that this took. It showed us how long it stayed on the ground, and we were able to really assess how lucky we were when the thing kind of hop skipped through here. Had that not happened, we'd have had much worse situation.
He was saying that they were really able to assess how lucky they were. What he means by that, no injuries were reported in the Glenville area.
Eyewitness News reporter Rod Rassman spent the day on one of the farms you just saw. He joins us now live from Glenville. Rod?
Randy, you saw a lot of the damage the tornado did here in the town of Glenville, but after it was finished here in the town, it headed that direction, out into the country. Luckily, there were no crops in the fields for the tornado to damage, but that's certainly not to say that the farmers got away without any damage. The tornado blew right past and never even touched dozens of homes after it left Glenville.
Just a massive one. It looked 200 yards across, and I heard the breaking glass.
But for Chris Michael, his wife and 3 kids, there was no getting out of the way. Only getting to safety.
Just wrapped in blankets under here.
This is what they found when they came up from the basement. Nearly all they had.
I think we'll just leave it.
All over the place.
I'm lucky everybody's okay, but it's too bad you lose a lot of stuff.
The more you have, the more you have to lose. Just ask Chris's landlord, who happens to be the next-door neighbor. Bruce and Nedra Schrauf. In addition to Chris's house, they own what was yesterday a large hog farm.
It's hard to see all the trees go and the buildings because they've been here a long time. It's hard.
Especially hard for Bruce, who has lived on this land since he was 3. Now, to see it in this almost unrecognizable condition, well, it's even hard for him to find words.
Let up, we came outside and saw all the...
But they are thankful that they and most of their 700 hogs did survive, and so did the memories.
We have pictures, and it's hard.
Now, this tornado, as you mentioned before, was on the ground for about 21 miles. Had the crops been in the field, it could have been very devastating for the farmers. As it is, the sheriff figures about $500,000 worth in agricultural damages. That's a pretty conservative estimate, though, Randy. They figure that could go a much, much higher than that.
All right, Rod Rassman near Glenville tonight for us. Thank you, Rod.
Very nice. How's the weather looking, Dave?
Well, it's a lot calmer than it was yesterday at this time. And, of course, we had a lot of views of that tornado that went through Glenville yesterday. And we've had a time to kind of survey the damage. Of course, the National Weather Service did that. And this is what that tornado appeared like by some of the chasers, some of the storm spotters that were out there yesterday.
Now, that's an F2. That looks like a big tornado, but F2 isn't very...
Size has nothing to do with the speed of the winds around. And really, that is a misconception. A lot of folks think that the larger the tornado is, the stronger it is. That's not always the case. In this particular case, it didn't have little vortices around it, didn't have those strong winds associated with it, but still 157-mile-per-hour winds does a lot of damage. Yeah. It was viewed by many people because it was a 21-mile path. Take a look at the different reports of tornadoes around southern Minnesota. You could see that path from Glenville up to south of Lansing, 21 miles long, and because it was on the ground for so long, skipping up and down, a lot of people saw it. Then south of Stewartville, also just north of Ellsworth in Wisconsin, and a very brief touchdown as well in River Falls, Wisconsin. Now, we were talking about an F2. What is that? Well, F0 to F5 is the Fujita scale, and that just gives you an idea of the damage that's done by these tornadoes based on the wind speeds around them. And it was in that F2, so considerable damage, of course, seen by that 157-mile-per-hour winds. But let's compare it to the St. Peter tornado several years ago, F4. That was devastating, 207 to 260-mile-per-hour winds.
Home and business owners spent the day accessing the damage left behind by this tornado. It swept across southern Minnesota early last night, cutting a path of destruction along the way. The hardest hit area was Glenville, a small town of about 800 people near Albert Lea on the Iowa border. The National Weather Service now categorized the tornado as an F2 on a scale from F0 to F5. F2 tornadoes can produce winds up to 157 miles an hour. The twister stayed on the ground for 21 miles. Fortunately, no one was injured, but 100 homes and businesses in Glenville were damaged. Early damage estimates come in at around $1.3 million. Governor Ventura dispatched 35 members of the National Guard to the area. Channel 5's Bob McNaney has been in Glenville since last night, and he joins us with the latest. Bob?
Julie, you can see lots of debris still littering these fields and all around this town and town itself. You can see the Salvation Army is here helping feeding people. It's been a long, wet, cold day of cleaning up. Down this way, you can see one of the town's 2 grain elevators that, well, it's in pretty rough shape tonight. It's been almost a day since the tornado hit this town, but people here admit, even though they've been looking around at all of this, reality has not yet sunk in.
It's unbelievable.
Dennis Raymond picks through what is left of his car wash business here on Glenville's main street.
And see the destruction on the TV, but you can't believe it until you see it yourself.
The tornado formed just west of town, according to the Freeborn County Sheriff. You see the huge storm approaching this very small town. That gas station has been reduced to sticks. The town's 2 grain elevators both took direct hits. Chopper 5 provides a good look. As the cleanup continues, the reality of what has happened here has not fully sunk in, according to people like Wade Basement.
I don't see what destruction a tornado can do until they've really been in one. There's no way. It's heartbreaking for everybody.
Everybody's active.
Glenville's mayor must deal with what has happened to his town. He is also faced with a more personal loss. That mess on the ground was his business.
It's not easy. You're torn between the two. You've got responsibilities both directions, plus family members yet, and running kind of thin.
The Freeborn County Sheriff told me again today that the sirens here in town did not sound. The ones in the county did, but they didn't sound here. They had a series of problems that resulted in virtually no warning for people. He pointed out, though, however, that even though tornado watches are out there and thunderstorm watches and warnings are out there, that's when you start to take notice, pay attention. Don't just rely on the sirens. Sure, if you hear them, take cover, but if you see the sky looking nasty as it did down here last night, take cover. It's a lesson that may have saved people's lives today. Julie?
Yeah, and we're just starting the season. It's a good one to keep in mind. Thanks, Bob. Farms in and around Glenville may have been hit the hardest. This is what some of the damage looks like from Chopper 5. As you can see, the tornado reduced outbuildings to lumber piles and emptied grain bins. Rod Rassman joins us live with more. Rod?
Well, Julie, after it did all the damage here in the town of Glenville, the tornado headed down this way. It bounced around a little bit. It hit some power lines and some trees, and then a farm got in the way. That farm is owned by Bruce and Nedra Strauff. They own the farm as well as the home next door, which they rent out. Now, all of this is torn apart this evening. Most of Bruce's 700 hogs survived the storm, but most of his farm buildings did not. So, after living on this farm nearly all of his life, Bruce is walking around on a farm he hardly recognizes.
It's hard to see all the trees go and the buildings because they've been here a long time. It's hard.
We're lucky everybody's okay, but it's too bad to lose a lot of stuff.
But it could have been worse. There could have been crops in the fields if it would have been later in the season. If that would have been the case, since the tornado was on the ground for about 21 miles, it would have been devastating for this part of the state. As it is, the sheriff figures about $500,000 just in agricultural damages, but he also figures that those numbers could get much higher. Julie?
All right, thank you, Rod.
The cleanup is well underway after tornadoes cut a path through southern Minnesota. Many of the twisters are captured on home video by you, our viewers, just like this one. There's a lot of damage, but thankfully no injuries after tornadoes touched down overnight in our area. Good evening, I'm Kendra Eastreich.
And thanks for joining us. I'm Jonathan Walsh. On top of the tornado aftermath, all this rain we're having is on track to create more flooding problems.
Some heavy rain down to the south and east. Nothing like last night, though. Numerous tornadoes occurred across the area. And of course, we heard about that Glenville tornado. The National Weather Service has determined that was an F2 tornado. That means that winds between 113 and 157 miles per hour were observed with that tornado. And of course, you saw that in the damage.
Well, you just heard Ryan mention Glenville, and one of the toughest and hardest areas hit by tornadoes was Glenville in Freeborn County. Damage to that town of 800 people is extensive. Take a look. The twister cut right through downtown Glenville. Several homes and businesses were damaged. The local car wash and a former appliance store were leveled. The storm blew down power lines. Last night, the area was blocked off to traffic and secured because no buildings or homes had any power. Emergency crews also had to deal with a gas leak. The Freeborn County Sheriff tells us the damage extends beyond the city limits even.
through here, doing a substantial amount of damage on the main street, and then it kind of hop, skipped, and jumped out east of town, and then it stayed pretty much on the ground for probably 8 to 10 miles. And so we've got a number of farm sites out here that have got extensive damage to homes, barns, other buildings.
There's an estimated $1.3 million in tornado damage for the Glenville area. And in the daylight, the damage is becoming more and more obvious. Crews spent much of today trying to restore power to the Glenville area. Homes are still without electricity, some of those homes down there tonight. Classes were canceled at the elementary school and high school, which is now serving as a command center. Local police and National Guard are protecting the town tonight from looters.
dismal conditions can't keep residents of the tornado-ravaged community of Glenville from cleaning up. Another day, another chance for Glenville residents to dig out following that fateful May Day twister. Rain did very little to hamper residents from their second full day of work. Several counties have pitched in to help this small community get back in shape. Today, many came out to continue picking up tree limbs and other debris. Freeborn County Sheriff says most of the electricity and gas has been restored to homes and businesses.
Power, the vast majority of the homes have power. I believe when we talked this morning, there was in the teens of those who had to have some electrical things done before they could get power restored to the house, but the main service lines have been restored.
Nolander says getting back to so-called normal life could take months. Many businesses and homes need to be completely rebuilt. Now, much of the devastation lies within the heart of Glenville, the downtown area. This is what remains of some of the major businesses that once lined Main Street. Tuesday's tornado severely damaged the grain elevator, a communications center, Knutson's Oil, and the grocery store. But Glenville's mayor says the community must remain positive about the situation.
It's got the short-term aspects to it and the long-term. The short-term, I would say that as far as cleanup go and a few repairs, you know, next week or two we'll be through that. Long-term, it's going to take some time to rebuild things back, plant a lot of trees, things like that. You know, there's long-term issues I'm sure that we'll be dealing with 5 years from now.
Webb adds he looks forward to rebuilding this community and make everything better than it was before the May Day twister.
A Glenville man remembers the night the May Day twister tore through town and the sirens didn't sound. The May Day twister that left its impact on the town of Glenville came without warning, literally. No siren sounded the night everything changed for the tiny community.
KIMT News Channel 3's Jamie Copley has covered the May Day twister since it touched down in Glenville on Tuesday. And Jamie, why didn't many residents know the tornado was going to hit?
Well, Pete, I spoke with a volunteer firefighter whose job is to warn the 800-some Glenville residents of severe weather. But everything changed the moment he went to push the warning button. It's a sight seldom seen up close, but the people who call Glenville home have been forever changed by this May Day twister. KIMT News Channel 3 took this video on Tuesday. As the tornado tears through town, listen closely, because there's something you won't hear. Warning sirens.
That's when I looked up, I saw the wall cloud coming on into town. I immediately got my boy out of the car, got him back into the fire barn, went on over to throw the switch.
But that's when something went horribly wrong for Bob Creer. The severe storm had already cut the electricity. The sirens didn't sound. Many Glenville residents still wonder why the tornado sirens didn't sound that fateful night. But one volunteer firefighter still gets choked up, remembering what happened.
I felt helpless. I still get emotional over it. It was, you know, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't warn the people properly, and I knew it was coming.
Even though Bob could see the May Day twister bearing down on the homes of his friends and neighbors, he could do nothing to warn them.
I was able to look out the window and was watching the tornado take off and go on down past stands here. It filled the sky, and I was watching it as it left town.
The memory of the May Day twister left its image in the minds and hearts, but maybe none more than Bob.
We're very thankful, you know, very thankful that you know, nobody did get injured and there were no deaths, and it's just a great joy to see how the community itself is pulling together and getting themselves through this ordeal.
Despite the obvious damage, many also agree they were incredibly lucky. With or without the sirens, Glenville still would have suffered this damage. But Bob is just happy the lack of warning sirens didn't cost anyone their lives. National Weather Service meteorologist Jim Richardson tells KIMT News Channel 3 they were very aware of the severe storms in Glenville, but he adds the tornado dropped out of the sky very quickly, giving them little time to warn Freeborn County. Reporting live in the newsroom, I'm Jamie Copley. Pete, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jamie.
Despite the devastation, Glenville's mayor remains optimistic about the future of downtown commerce. This is what remains of some of the major businesses that once lined Main Street. Tuesday's tornado severely damaged the grain elevator, a communications center, Knutson's Oil, and the grocery store. But community members hold their heads high when it comes to putting this area back together.
You have to have a positive attitude. it doesn't do any good right now. It doesn't do any good to cry because it's there wasn't any fatalities, no injuries. I think it's time for everybody just to go ahead wide open and rebuild and see if they can make everything better than it was before.
Webb says it will take months and possibly years to bring the town of Glenville back to complete restoration. Glenville Emmons students get out of class for a lesson in helping others today. Armed with rakes and their work clothes, area youth took the time to help rebuild their community. Many walked around the town picking up tree branches and other debris. Students say they hope their efforts help.
It feels really good to just help people pick up their yards and stuff and make it look nice and help the town pick up.
Community members say they're impressed with this act of kindness from area students.
Albert Lee Tribune, Friday, May 4th, 2001. Letter to the editor. People make Glenville community what it is. The Glenville boosters and women of today have been working the past few months on the Glenville beautification project. Isn't it ironic that just as the boosters were scheduled to meet Tuesday night, that the massive tornado ripped through town? I can't help but believe that God was sending us the message that true beauty lies within. I started to notice this immediately after the storm when all the emergency personnel, volunteers, and Glenville residents started to pull together to help those in need. Many of our town leaders have suffered tremendous personal damages to their businesses, yet have put the needs of others first to facilitate a successful cleanup of the entire city. Many people have been working under adverse weather conditions with little to no sleep. The message that shines through all of this is that it is the people of Glenville that make it the beautiful city that it is. This experience has made us stronger, and I'm confident that our city will grow and prosper because of it. God was and will always be with us. Holly Creer, Glenville.
Thank you.